I could have done better job.
Everyone saw Sue Martin's fire on Fast and Loud, but no one knew the warnings were real until her truth exploded. Join us as we uncover the secrets she hid deep. The lifestyle we never saw. Unlike many reality stars who are shaped and polished by editing teams, Sue Martin didn't need any help becoming memorable. She walked into the spotlight already complete, strong, smart, bold, and unapologetically real. She never allowed herself to be boxed into a role for entertainment. She wasn't interested in being the funny extra or the token woman in a shop full of men. Sue was the leader, both when the cameras were rolling and when they weren't, and she made sure everyone understood that from the start. Balancing her growing TV presence with the daily demands of running a business wasn't a simple job, but Sue handled it with the same focus and energy she gave to every car that rolled into her shop. While others on the show were busy joking around or performing for the cameras, Sue kept her head down and worked. She measured every angle with care, stitched every panel with precision, and turned out perfect results even under pressure. The filming didn't slow her down. If anything, it was the crew that had to keep up with her rhythm. She made it clear her shop wasn't going to bend for a TV schedule. Behind her sharp humor and no-nonsense style was a woman who had spent years fighting to be taken seriously in an industry dominated by men. She wasn't about to let a show reduce her to a stereotype. She was herself, raw, honest, and entirely unfiltered. And that's exactly why people loved her. But holding that level of excellence didn't come without challenges. She set the bar high, and not everyone could meet it. Some workers quit. Others clashed with her strong personality. Whispers floated around about staff disagreements, emotional exits, and rules that some thought were too strict. But Sue never apologized for expecting the best. She had spent too many years earning her reputation to start lowering her standards now. She gave everything to her work, and she expected the same dedication from the people she hired. While others came and went on Fast and Loud, Sue remained steady, always present, and never replaceable. She didn't need to raise her voice often, but when she did, the room went silent. Everyone paid attention. Her words carried weight. Sue wasn't looking for fame. She wasn't chasing applause. But when she was no longer on the screen, fans noticed right away. By the time Fast and Loud entered its later seasons, the woman who once made the audience laugh with a single glare or clever remark had quietly disappeared. There was no dramatic farewell, no on-air explanation. One day, she was part of the Gas Monkey chaos, firm, fearless, and unforgettable. The next, she was gone. It was as if she had been stitched into the very soul of the show, only to vanish without a trace. Fans didn't stay quiet. Online forums were filled with questions. Viewers wanted to know what happened. Why wasn't Sue around anymore? Theories took over. Some thought it was a decision made by producers. Others believed something personal had happened behind the scenes. Among the loudest guesses, a falling out between Sue and Richard Rawlings. Quiet rumors suggested tension building over time, or even disagreements about deadlines, money, and respect. Sue was known for sticking to her values and refusing to put up with nonsense. As the show expanded into a bigger brand, loaded with sponsors, tighter schedules, and corporate hands in creative decisions, it's possible her way of doing things didn't match the new direction. Whispers spread about a final disagreement that may have pushed her out, but neither Sue nor the production ever addressed it. The silence said more than words ever could. Even people who had worked on the show for years kept quiet. No one wanted to speak out. Because Sue wasn't just respected, she was feared in the best way possible. Without her, the show felt different. It had lost something important. That spark, edge, and the feeling that anything could happen was finally gone. Sue had been the one person who could challenge Richard without backing down. And once she was no longer there, the show's balance shifted. But in true Sue Martin style, her exit was silent, powerful, and completely her decision. She didn't need a big send-off. She walked away just like she built her career, on her own terms. Even though Sue Martin faded from the spotlight, she never walked away from the craft that made her a legend. Her shop, ASM Auto Upholstery, is still very much alive in Dallas. The doors stay open, the machines keep buzzing, and the leather is still being sewn with the same fierce precision that built her reputation. But something about Sue herself has shifted. She's gone quiet. No flashy interviews, no regular posts online, just the occasional vague update that barely gives anything away. It's almost like the moment the cameras stopped rolling, she stepped back completely, not because she was hiding, but because that was always her choice. Yet her presence hasn't disappeared. In the world of custom cars, her name still carries serious weight. Ask around and you'll hear it time and time again. Sue is still the gold standard. Her upholstery jobs still win awards. Her builds still spark conversations, but you won't catch her bragging about it. She doesn't attend auto shows. She avoids the red carpet moments. She doesn't play to the crowd. Some say she now helps younger people, especially women, find their place in the upholstery world. But even that, she keeps behind closed doors as private, personal, and far from the noise of fame. For those who've had a chance to meet her since Fast and Loud, the message is pretty clear. Sue isn't interested in rehashing her TV past. She's more focused on what matters to her now. Quiet work, her own schedule, and staying far from the spotlight. While so many chase attention and social media glory, Sue stands apart, still a mystery, still powerful, and still doing things her way. But behind the bold, fearless woman fans saw on TV, there was a more complicated story. Would you like to find out what this story is all about? Stay tuned. Confirming Sue's personality. The people who worked with her at ASM describe her in mixed ways, some with admiration, others with frustration. There are those who called her the best boss they ever had, probably because she's loyal, driven, and intensely committed to quality. Others, however, said the work environment could be hard to handle. Tales of workers leaving in the middle of projects, loud arguments in the back office, and Sue's temper flaring over the smallest imperfections weren't uncommon. Her standards were sky high. Her patience for mistakes was practically non-existent. For some, that pushed them to be better. For others, it pushed them out. Former staff members described moments where Sue could make them laugh one second and bring them to tears the next. Her moods weren't easy to read. Some said she didn't care much for excuses. She only cared that the work met her expectations. There were even rumors floating around about legal trouble, employee complaints, and firings that stirred up drama, but nothing ever made it to the public in an official way. Like everything else about Sue, the truth was wrapped in mystery. Was she too strict, too intense, or just misunderstood? Sue didn't just make her way through a male-dominated industry, she took charge of it. But she didn't get there by playing sweet or soft. Her humor, her sharp words, and her unshakable confidence weren't just part of her charm. They were her shield. The world she stepped into wasn't built for someone like her, a Vietnamese woman, an outsider, someone who didn't fit the usual mold. From day one, she knew respect wouldn't be handed to her. She'd have to fight for it and fight hard. Her sharp jokes became her defense. Her loud voice became her way of setting boundaries. In a place where women were often doubted or dismissed, being quiet wasn't an option, it was a risk. Sue didn't have the room to be gentle. If she showed emotion, they'd call her weak. If she stepped back, they'd forget her. So she toughened up, and that toughness became who she was. People laughed when she tore into Richard Rawlings. They clapped when she stood up to the Gas Monkey crew. But many never stopped to think that the person they were cheering for had spent decades building a wall of strength just to be taken seriously. She rarely opened up about being an immigrant or how hard it was to break through the bias she faced. She didn't speak publicly about the challenges that came with being a woman in her line of work. But you could feel it in her pace, her silence, her need for perfection, and the careful way she carried herself. Everything she achieved was earned the hard way, and she wasn't about to let anyone forget that. Sue Martin's life wasn't built on ease or comfort. It was shaped by struggle. But instead of letting that weigh her down, she wore it like a badge of honor. For Sue, showing emotions didn't feel safe, and she found her strength in being sharp, focused, and fully in control. And when the world didn't hand her those things, she created them for herself, piece by piece, with the same precision she poured into every stitch of her craft. On Fast and Loud, Sue was a standout. Her voice, her energy, her no-nonsense attitude, she made sure you noticed her. But once the cameras stopped rolling, her life was a different story entirely. While fans got to see her fire, her humor, and her unbeatable upholstery skills, everything else about Sue was kept tightly sealed. No one knows where she calls home, who's in her heart, or what her dreams look like. Her personal world stayed shut, hidden behind the same sense of privacy that made her workspace feel almost untouchable. And in that deep silence, the questions started piling up. Did she have a family? Children? A partner? The show never hinted at it. There were no social media breadcrumbs, no interviews spilling details, no offhand comments to satisfy curiosity. Once she left the show, it was like she vanished into thin air, leaving only questions behind. And these questions stirred up so many rumors and speculations. Rumors surrounding Sue's lifestyle. When Sue Martins left the show, it gave way to a lot of rumors and the guessing games. Some believed she stepped away due to health struggles. Others whispered about behind-the-scenes financial pressure, maybe tax issues, or the weight of trying to keep a high-end shop running in such a cutthroat business. A few took it further, wondering if Sue had experienced deep trauma, possibly tied to her early life in Vietnam, hardships she never opened up about. And then there were the more dramatic whispers, heated disagreements with clients, payments that never came through, bad jobs that led to tempers flaring. But none of it was ever proven. No reports, no official claims, just pure speculation feeding off the mystery she left behind. And through it all, Sue never said a word. Not in public, not online, not even in casual conversation. And that silence? It only made people more curious. The woman who was so fierce and outspoken on screen somehow managed to keep every other part of her life completely locked away. It made people wonder, was she protecting something or just keeping peace with herself? But Sue never seemed to care about being understood. She wasn't chasing fame. She didn't try to become a brand or gather followers. She simply focused on her work, and she did it better than almost anyone else. That alone made her unforgettable. She wasn't out there building engines or flipping cars, but she brought something rare to Fast and Loud. She was its spirit, the one person who could challenge Richard Rawlings and hold her ground every single time. And the reason she never broke character was simple, because she wasn't acting. That was really her. Even now, long after she disappeared from the spotlight, her impact still lingers. Young women coming into the automotive world still look up to her. They mention her name with pride. Her shop, ASM Upholstery, is talked about like a legend. Her work is still showcased at car events, still admired by those in the restoration world, still seen as the gold standard for custom interiors. She didn't fade out. She made a choice to step back without watering down the legacy she had built. And that decision, in itself, speaks volumes. But even with all she left behind, the mystery remains. Why did she leave without saying goodbye? What's the real story behind the rumors? What became of the woman who once owned every room with just a glance? We might never get answers because Sue Martin never felt the need to explain herself. She never has. And maybe that's exactly why she stays on our minds. She came in like a storm, made her mark, and disappeared without a trace. Speaking of coming like a storm, have you ever wondered what her life was like before she got exposed to the reality world? Well, here's your chance to know. Life before the show. Before she ever became known for her bold personality on Fast and Loud, Sue Martin had already lived a life most people couldn't imagine. Her story began far from the bright lights and car engines in Vietnam during a time when fear and chaos were everywhere. Growing up in a war-torn country, Sue didn't have the luxury of comfort or stability. Her childhood was filled with struggle, constant change, and the need to stay strong, even when things didn't make sense. She eventually made her way to the United States in the late 1970s, not because she was chasing fame or television dreams, but because she was chasing hope. She wanted a fresh beginning, a place where she could build a real future with her own hands. When she arrived in Texas, she had nothing in her pockets. No money, barely any English, and not a single person to call a friend. But what she did carry with her was an unstoppable drive to make something out of nothing. Sue wasn't picky about work. She accepted whatever came her way, whether it was cleaning buildings or working in noisy factories. She didn't shy away from tough jobs. Instead, she embraced them, understanding that every dollar earned was a step closer to stability. She got used to rolling up her sleeves, staying up late, and pushing through exhaustion. That hard-working spirit would become part of her identity forever. At some point, she discovered a deep interest in upholstery. It might have been the satisfaction of making old things look new again, or the joy she found in creating something beautiful with her hands. Whatever drew her in, it gave her a sense of peace. The tools, the stitching, the details, it all just made sense to her. It wasn't just a job, it was something that calmed her soul. By the end of the 1980s, Sue had taken a brave step forward and opened her own small upholstery shop in Dallas. She named it ASM Auto Upholstery. It wasn't a fancy place, and it didn't get much attention at first. But it was hers, her personal space, built from sweat and courage. In that little shop, she set her own rules and held herself to the highest standard. Every seat she repaired, every seam she stitched, carried a bit of her story, full of pressure, pride, and deep meaning. What most people didn't see was how personal that shop really was to her. It wasn't just about the craft, it was her shelter and her place of peace. Inside those walls, she wasn't just a woman with a heavy accent or a past she didn't talk about. She was a master of her work, letting her talent speak louder than any words ever could. She never sat around sharing sad stories or seeking pity. But those who knew her well understood that the shop meant far more to her than just money. It was where she felt strong, where she belonged. Even though she had arrived in America with nothing, Sue slowly turned her new life into something powerful. She didn't wait for the spotlight, she earned it. When she launched ASM Auto Upholstery, she didn't need fancy advertisements or attention-grabbing signs. Her work spoke for itself. People started talking. They'd say there was a woman in Dallas who made car interiors look cleaner, sharper, and more perfect than anyone else. She didn't need to play tricks or cut corners. Her hands told the story. And soon, the world began to notice what she had quietly built all along. What made her stand out? Right from the start, Sue Martin ran her shop with the kind of discipline and focus you'd expect from someone in charge of a military operation. She wasn't relaxed about deadlines, and she certainly didn't let mistakes slide. Everything had to be right. And respect? That had to be earned, no exceptions. Sue wasn't dreaming about building a big brand or chasing spotlight moments. She was simply doing what she loved and doing it better than anyone else, perfecting every single detail, one careful stitch at a time. Whether she was working on a vintage Mustang, a luxury Porsche, or an old beat-up truck, she treated each project like it was going on display at a major international car show. Nothing about her work was halfway. She only used the best materials. Her attention to detail was on another level. And her standards? Tough as nails. But that's what set her apart. people didn't come to her shop looking for shortcuts or bargains. They came because they knew the job would be flawless. Her reputation grew quickly. Car collectors, racers, even a few famous names started bringing their vehicles to her. But Sue didn't care about your name, your fame, or your money. If your vehicle came in dirty, if your measurements were sloppy, or if your attitude was off, she'd call you out immediately. No sugarcoating, no hesitation. She could take apart a car seat with one hand and tear down your pride with the other. That fiery personality, that fearless honesty, would eventually become her signature. Way before cameras ever started rolling, Sue had already carved out a powerful name for herself in the Dallas car scene. Her name carried real weight. Her shop wasn't just a business, it was her own little empire where she ruled with both skill and strength. While many small shops struggled to stay open, Sue's place became known as the gold standard. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, and she did it her way. No one could have guessed that this quiet little workshop, built from the ground up, would one day become the setting for one of the most unexpected TV moments in the world of custom cars. That turning point came when Richard Rawlings, the loud and confident face of Fast and Loud, came looking for custom interiors. And there was only one place that had the kind of top-tier work he needed: Sue's shop. And only one woman who didn't flinch at his bold attitude. The moment Richard stepped into Sue's shop, the energy changed. He came in loud, full of charm, and with cameras in tow. Sue met him with a sharp look and an even sharper comment. And just like that, a legendary on-screen duo was born. Sue wasn't selected from a casting list. No one gave her acting lessons. She wasn't coached or told what to say. She simply showed up as herself, witty, blunt, and totally unimpressed. As more Gas Monkey builds rolled into her shop needing her expert touch, the rest of the crew quickly figured out what the viewers at home would come to adore. Sue was not someone to mess with. Her jokes were quick, but her standards moved even quicker. While other personalities on the show leaned into over-the-top reactions or playful drama, Sue didn't need to perform. If something was done poorly, she said so. If Richard tried to push her or speed her up, she had no problem telling him to take a hike. She was the only one on Fast and Loud who could talk to Richard like he was a rookie employee and somehow still leave him speechless. Fans were hooked. The back and forth between her and Richard quickly became one of the highlights of the series. It wasn't really teamwork, it felt more like a showdown between two strong forces. But Sue never backed down. She didn't need to. She wasn't trying to win the spotlight, she was just trying to finish her work. And that's exactly what made her so magnetic. She didn't chase fame, she didn't play along for attention, she stayed true to her purpose. And by simply being herself, she became the most genuine and unpredictable part of the show. Viewers didn't just tune in for the shiny cars anymore, they wanted to see what Sue would say next. And after the show, it was an all-round success because Sue never lost focus. When the last episode of Fast and Loud was shown, fans everywhere were left wondering what would happen next for Sue Martin, the talented woman known for her incredible upholstery work and her well-known shop, ASM Auto Upholstery. It's something people have seen many times before. Once the lights go out and filming ends, many businesses that seem to be doing great on television often find themselves struggling. Without the constant attention from the cameras and the free publicity that comes with being part of a popular show, the fear was that Sue's shop might slow down, fade away, or even shut down completely. Many thought the end of the show would be the end of her success, too. Instead of watching her business disappear, people found something truly inspiring. Her shop didn't just survive after the show ended, it grew. It became even more successful, stronger than ever, and that caught everyone off guard. Sue's continued success didn't follow the usual pattern. It followed a pattern of hard work and determination. So what do you think about Sue Martin's lifestyle? Do you think she was so brave and determined to handle her role and business? Let us know in the comment section. If you want more interesting revelations about your favorite TV reality shows, be sure to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on your screen. See you there.